In a shocking revelation that could rock the foundations of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's already fragile relationship, Prince Harry is reportedly enraged after discovering that his wife, Meghan Markle, quietly secured the couple's Montecito home under her own name without his knowledge. This bold move by Meghan not only highlights the depths of their turbulent relationship but also casts a glaring light on the apparent power dynamics and trust issues that have plagued their marriage from the very beginning. It is not just a personal betrayal, it's a financial maneuver that exposes a disturbing pattern of control and manipulation. The move is a slap in the face to Prince Harry's dignity, with the suggestion that Meghan has been secretly plotting her independence, perhaps even from him, while making it appear that their bond was unshakable. But this latest move is not an isolated incident. It is just one piece of a much larger, darker puzzle that could have devastating consequences for their marriage and future. For a man who once proclaimed his unconditional loyalty to his wife, Harry's shock and anger are palpable. He was blindsided by the revelation that Meghan, with her calculated stealth, had placed the title of their luxurious Montecito mansion in her own name, effectively making it her property entirely. One can only imagine the conversation that unfolded behind closed doors, where the facade of marital bliss collapsed under the weight of this cold, strategic move. The ramifications of such an act are far-reaching. It is not simply a matter of real estate but a fundamental breach of trust. Meghan's actions raise a haunting question: did Harry ever truly understand what he was walking into when he married the former actress and global superstar? Or has he, like many others, been nothing more than a pawn in a larger game? Meghan Markle's track record suggests that this latest power play is not an anomaly. From the very beginning of her relationship with Harry, she has carefully crafted an image of herself as an independent woman, a feminist trailblazer. But beneath this polished exterior lies a woman who is often seen as manipulative, calculating, and, as some critics would argue, emotionally exploitative. Meghan's ambitious rise to prominence came on the coattails of Harry's royal status, and yet there are signs that the scales have always been tipped in her favor. Despite her relentless claims of wanting privacy and her desire to distance herself from the royal family, Meghan has repeatedly used her royal connection to further her own personal agenda. The Montecito house documents are merely the latest in a long line of decisions that have left many questioning her true motives. What makes this latest betrayal so striking is the fact that it was not an open discussion between the couple. It was not a decision made in mutual agreement or a symbol of joint investment. No, this was a unilateral decision made by Meghan alone. In doing so, in a shocking revelation that could rock the foundations of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's she has proven that she is willing to play the long game, always thinking several steps ahead and, more importantly, positioning herself in a way that guarantees her control over her finances, control over her future, and control over Harry's destiny. The fact that Harry was blindsided only underscores the extent to which Meghan has been operating under her own terms, leaving Harry to merely react. Let us not forget the troubling pattern of Meghan's behavior, which has now come under greater scrutiny with the revelation of the house documents. Throughout their relationship, there have been repeated whispers that Meghan has been the mastermind behind many of the couple's most significant decisions. Whether it was their highly publicized departure from the royal family, their controversial interviews, or the lucrative deals they've signed since moving to America, it is clear that Meghan has been the driving force behind much of the couple's public image. However, this move to place their home in her name goes beyond career decisions or media manipulation. It speaks to a much darker, more personal narrative. It's a story of a woman who has learned to wield influence and power in ways that few ever anticipated, and who is not afraid to manipulate those closest to her to ensure that she remains in control. But what of Harry? The once dashing prince, who was seen as the darling of the British monarchy, seems to have become a mere bystander in his own life. His idealism, his sense of duty, and his devotion to Meghan have been well documented, but as this latest scandal unfolds, one can't help but wonder, was he ever truly in charge of his own destiny? How much of his life has been shaped by the quiet manipulations of his wife? How much of his persona as the caring prince was built on a facade, a mask designed to make him appear like a man who had everything under control when, in fact, he may have been the one most out of control? This breach of trust is not just a slap in the face to Harry, but a direct attack on everything he thought he knew about his wife. The notion that Meghan, despite her constant claims of wanting to be seen as a free spirit, has been methodically stacking the deck in her favor at Harry's expense cannot be ignored. From the outside looking in, it seems as though she has been using her royal ties to propel herself into a world of wealth and influence, all while keeping Harry on the sidelines. By securing the Montecito home in her name, Meghan has essentially carved out her own financial independence from Harry, something that seems to echo the disjointed nature of their entire relationship. Meghan's public persona of being an empathetic and humanitarian figure stands in stark contrast to the behind-the-scenes reality of a woman who has been far more self-serving than many have been willing to admit. Critics of the Sussexes have long argued that Meghan is not the victim she claims to be. She has proven that she is willing to play the long game, always thinking several steps ahead and, more importantly, positioning herself in a way that guarantees her control over her finances, control over her future. But rather someone who has meticulously planned her every move, using Harry and the royal family as stepping stones. This most recent act of placing the home solely under her name lends weight to that argument. After all, how can anyone justify? But rather someone who has meticulously planned her every move, using Harry and the royal family as stepping stones. This most recent act of placing the home solely under her name lends weight to that argument. After all, how can anyone justify? But rather someone who has meticulously planned her every move, using Harry and the royal family as stepping stones. This most recent act of placing the home solely under her name lends weight to that argument. After all, how can anyone justify? But rather someone who has meticulously planned her every move, using Harry and the royal family as stepping stones. This most recent act of placing the home solely under her name lends weight to that argument. After all, how can anyone justify? But rather someone who has meticulously planned her every move, using Harry and the royal family as stepping stones. This most recent act of placing the home solely under her name lends weight to that argument. After all, how can anyone justify? But rather someone who has meticulously planned her every move, using Harry and the royal family as stepping stones.